Hey everyone, John here again with another BrainScratch Searchlight. Thank you so much for joining me. This is for today, Wednesday, May 3rd, 2017, and we're going to start with just a quick update on the DC teens. Now, you might not be aware, but I've been tracking a list of, originally it was 25 names of DC teens that had gone missing when that viral story kicked around in March. I've got links in the description box below if you want to see the older episodes, but just to give you a quick update, here at mpdc.dc.gov at their missing persons page, we can see that we are down to 2 names from that original set of 25, Zaire Flemings and Navaris Johnson. So Zaire Flemings, we still have him missing from the 4200 block of 4th Street, last seen Thursday, February 23rd, 2017, around 2 p.m. I will have the contact information in the description box below if you know anything about this case. He is a black male, medium complexion, 5'9", 160 pounds, brown eyes, and black hair. Last seen wearing a blue-white jacket, blue jeans, and gray New Balance sneakers. We also still have Navaris L. Johnson missing from the unit block of Galveston Street. Last seen Monday, February 27th, 2017, around 4 p.m. Black male, light complexion, 5'6", 175 pounds, with brown eyes and black hair. Last seen wearing a white shirt, a black jacket, blue jeans, and black sneakers. Now, the good news here is that Clayton Carter has fallen off the list, so I believe he has been located. Once again, I can't find any information confirming that in terms of news sources. It's kind of tough with cases when you have people this young because sometimes that doesn't make the rounds, but his name has been removed from the active missing persons cases, so I think it's pretty safe to assume Clayton has been located. So we're down to 2 from those original 25 that I was tracking. Also worth noting, I just did a quick count of the current cases that are teenagers missing from the DC area, and it is still at 11. So that theory that I had where you're going to have between 10 to possibly as high as 15 missing teens that fit that criteria that the original theory was kind of basing itself on. That seems to be holding true. Luckily, most of these cases do seem to be being closed out in a somewhat timely pace. I know the Clayton one I was getting a little worried about because he had been missing since January, but it looks like that one is now solved. So I'm hopeful that these last 2 will also be solved. Now, an interesting side effect has happened. As I was researching the missing teens, I saw a new type of article that was kicking around. Mass media or major media has pretty much acknowledged that the missing teen scare that happened specifically for the DC area in March was kind of a viral misunderstanding. But some publications have actually taken that opportunity to talk about a very specific case that is certainly tragic, and it has overtones that point to kind of a larger cultural issue. So I thought it'd be fair to follow suit and to cover the story that they're talking about, and that is missing young woman Relisha Rudd. And we can see pictures of her here. They did issue Amber Alerts in her local area. Once again, there's contact information I will have in the description box below if you happen to have some information on where Relisha is. She is still missing. Jumping over to the NamUs Profile, we can see the date that she was last seen. They're saying it's March 19th, 2014. From the information I've reviewed, the last confirmed sighting of her is actually March 1st. She was 8 years old at that time. She would be 11 years old now. She is African American, female, approximately 48 inches high. She weighs around 80 pounds. Went missing from Washington, District of Columbia. Relisha was last seen on March 19th, 2014. She may be in the company of an adult male. I'm not sure how current this information is, so we're going to go into some news stories, and I'll give you guys kind of as much detail as I can find on this. Black hair, brown eyes, no known distinctive body features. They don't even really have a good explanation of the clothing that she was last seen wearing. You guys will understand why once we get into the details of what happened around this story. Obviously, she doesn't have any transportation method. They don't have dental information on her. Thankfully, they do have some DNA samples that have been submitted. No fingerprint information as well. Starting at rollingout.com, let's see what we can learn about what happened to Relisha Rudd. Relisha lived with her drug-addicted mother and 2 brothers at the DC General Shelter. Actually, in some other information I've reviewed, I believe it is 3 brothers total. Minor clarification there. The shelter itself is a former hospital that was converted into a shelter because of the serious issues of homeless families in the nation's capital. But according to residents, the facility is far from safe. You'll find a link to a Reddit thread in the description box below, and I highly recommend that you jump to that thread and look through it. There is one post in particular that is from someone that supposedly worked at this, I think they actually volunteered at this location, and they're saying that the way these articles are describing that location isn't even accurate. It was so much worse. You're talking about a building that had like a raccoon infestation. Many portions of the building were closed off because they were too dangerous to be occupied. So very, very poor and very troubling conditions. Residents have to deal with vagrancy, drug users, and a general atmosphere of unpleasantness, made even worse if you were a child like Relisha. Relisha was an easy target for shelter janitor Khalil Tatum. One resident, Yolanda Manning, was quoted as stating that Tatum would often give money to little girls and never to the boys. Tatum befriended Relisha's mother, Shamika Young, and easily was able to get the child away from the shelter. Apparently, Relisha even referred to Tatum as God Daddy. So it seems like he kind of worked his way into this family and was being seen as an uncle figure or something along those lines to gain trust. The way that this version is giving it out, I've bumped into some conflicting information in terms of how Relisha came into Tatum's custody, but just keep that in mind as we go forward. He took her to see Disney on Ice, bought her a tablet computer, and Young even allowed her daughter to spend the night away from the shelter, allegedly with Tatum and his granddaughter. Once again, it sounds to me like he is manipulating the situation, probably telling her mother, hey, my granddaughter is going to be there. The kids would probably get along well. Let me have her come and stay with us for a couple days. Unfortunately, the story doesn't even line up with that explanation. Things get a lot weirder very quickly. I found this really good timeline that breaks everything down at WashingtonPost.com, and I'm going to start in the middle of it. There are older entries from where I'm starting, but they're basically tracing the history of the family. We're not talking about very good conditions that Relisha was living in here, so just know that her mother was investigated on a few different occasions. But November 2013, children left unsupervised. Social workers found evidence that children were unsupervised and that one child had been thrown to the ground and slapped, causing a split lip. This occurred while the family was living at the homeless shelter at the old DC General Hospital. February 26, 2014, Khalil Malik Tatum, a janitor at the homeless shelter at the old DC General Hospital, is seen with Relisha walking toward a room in a Holiday Inn Express. Police believe Relisha's mother, Shamika Young, handed her daughter over to Tatum, but Young denies she did so. And here we actually have a video clip of the surveillance footage from February 26, 2014. And what's strange about this is if you're a casual observer, this could be a man and his daughter. You would never have any reason to think twice or that anything bad was going on here. But unfortunately, it does seem like that might have been the case. March 1st, 2014, last day Relisha is seen alive according to DC police. There have been no confirmed sightings of Tatum and Relisha together after March 1st, and no sightings of Relisha at all after that date. March 13th, 2014, school absences. A counselor at Payne Elementary writes a referral to the DC Child and Family Services Agency noting Relisha's many absences. She missed more than 30 days, but officials say many were excused by her mother for illness, citing a Dr. Tatum. March 19th, 2014, a social worker calls Dr. Tatum, who arranges a meeting at the shelter. He does not show up. The worker finds out that he is a janitor and he left his shift early that day. DC police launch a missing person investigation. At 9:39 p.m., an officer calls Tatum's cell, but it goes straight to voicemail and it's never again reactivated. At 10:04 p.m., Tatum checks into room 132 of the Red Roof Inn in Oxon Hill, Maryland, and is seen with 4 people. None of them, police later say, is Relisha. Less than an hour later, 3 people leave. So at this point, we're talking about this girl supposedly being in this guy's custody for up to a month. However, what's really important and what the police are trying to point out here is she is not seen after March 1st. So the authorities really think that he did something to her and had since disposed of her in some way. That is probably the key question in this case. Is Relisha still alive? Has she been given to someone else? Is this potentially a trafficking situation of some kind? We really don't know. But unfortunately, the kinks in this story do not stop here. I'm also very curious about these 4 people that went to room 132. Obviously, Tatum is going to be one of them. And as we're going to learn here, his wife is going to be another, but I don't know who the 2 others are. March 20th, 2014, Prince George's County Police receive a request from DC Police to help with the missing child. Basically, DC Police let them know what type of truck he's driving, and the Prince George County Police say, hey, we know where that truck is. It's at the Red Roof Inn. They then go inside the room, and they found his wife, Andrea Tatum, 51, lying face down on a bed and shot once in the head. At that point, Tatum is charged in a warrant with murder in connection with the killing. A vigil is held on March 22nd outside of the homeless shelter for Relisha. And in a later article I read that right after this vigil, or towards the end of it, family members were getting into arguments and starting to blame each other about who was responsible for Relisha disappearing or giving Tatum this type of access to Relisha. We're going to get some more details on that towards the end of this video. On March 25th, 2014, the FBI releases video, that's the video that I showed you from the hotel, of Tatum and Relisha in the Holiday Inn in Northeast, taken on February 26th. They post a $25,000 reward for the return of Relisha, and police in Prince George post a separate $25,000 reward for information leading to Tatum's arrest, specifically for the killing. At this point, March 27th, the police chief is stating he may have killed her. DC Police Chief Kathy Lanier said police cannot ignore that Rudd, gone for nearly a month, might have been killed by Tatum. March 28th, 2014, police say Tatum also had contact with several other young girls at the shelter, even though such contact is strictly prohibited. And then March 31st, 2014, body found in park is likely Tatum. And the following day, on April 1st, they positively ID that body as Tatum. It seems that he shot himself in this park, but not before being seen at a location where he was buying, I believe it's plastic bags, a shovel, and quicklime. So it really seems like there is a possibility that he may have buried Relisha somewhere. I'm hoping that's not the case. And considering he also killed his wife, maybe he was planning on moving her body to a different location at some point. So there might be another explanation for how those items were intended to be used. I'm hopeful that that is at least the reason behind it, but let's continue. Quickly jumping back to the Rolling Out article, another interesting wrinkle in this timeline is that initially Relisha's mother refused to allow an Amber Alert to be issued for her missing daughter. It was only after Tatum's wife, Andrea Tatum, was found dead that the Amber Alert was issued. And there's a little bit of controversy around where they issued the Amber Alert, because they were very specific to use the DC area, even though they had reason to believe that he might have been in neighboring Maryland and one other state. I can't remember off the top of my head. But police say that they were doing what was appropriate based on the information that they had. Why her mother was refusing for an Amber Alert to be issued? A very good question, and I don't think we actually have an answer on that. Washington Post reporting on April 6th, 2016, D.C. police on Wednesday launched another search for the remains of Relisha Rudd, the girl who disappeared 25 months ago with the janitor of a district homeless shelter, this time focused on the grounds of the U.S. National Arboretum in Northeast Washington. Police efforts to find Relisha have focused on several areas of the city. After an unsuccessful March 2014 search at the 700-acre Kenilworth Park and Aquatic Gardens, which abuts the Arboretum, police all but declared Relisha dead and described further searches as recovery missions. During that earlier search, however, police found Tatum's body in a shed at the park. Police said he committed suicide after abducting Relisha and killing his wife in a Maryland hotel room. They also said that Tatum, 51, had bought large trash bags and was seen on surveillance video at the Holiday Inn Express. The hotel is not far from the site of the December search and is down the street from the Arboretum. Relisha's mother, Shamika Young, has maintained that her daughter is still alive. "I still have hope and faith she'll return one day," she said at the time. Now at this point, if you guys are feeling like I am about this case, you're extremely frustrated at the mother. How could she allow this to happen? How could she let this person that wasn't related to her take her daughter, even buying her daughter this stuff? I mean, some of us would wonder, why is he buying this kid a tablet? Why is he taking this kid to Disney on Ice? Is this really someone that's just trying to be kind, or is there some ulterior motive here? Unfortunately, that is really putting on a bit of a critical thinking cap, but not looking into her mother very much and what her mother's capabilities might have been at the time. And possibly, did her mother even have maybe a little bit of a decent reason for trying to let Relisha get out of this extreme poverty that she had been living in her whole life? And the Washington Post went one further and wrote an article kind of from that perspective. It's called "A Lost Mother and Daughter. In the Case of Missing 8-Year-Old Relisha Rudd, Emotional Scars Transcend Generations." Now, obviously, I can't read it all to you, but I do want to share a few parts of this story with you. Young, that's Relisha's mother, spent much of her own childhood in foster care. She entered the Virginia foster care system at age 9, along with her 3 younger sisters and brother. For Young, the next 9 years were a forced march through foster homes, institutions, and group homes, a blur of abandonment, bewilderment, and rage. Young never wanted her own children to end up in foster care as she did, but then her daughter disappeared. In the furor that followed, Relisha's 3 younger brothers were taken from Young, who had been accused of neglect at least 3 times before, and who police said initially misled them about her daughter's whereabouts. Now, what that's referring to is, it depends on what version of the story you read about this, but in some cases, the school official that was noticing that Relisha wasn't coming to school contacted her mother, and her mother said she was ill and she was with Dr. Tatum. Then there is another twist on that story where it was actually Relisha's grandmother that was contacted, and even, I believe, brought a note of some kind to the school about Relisha having an illness. So there's a couple of variations on it, and that's kind of where these 2 women really kind of go like this in terms of pointing the finger of blame at each other. But we'll hear more about that in here. Young pulls up a chair and opens the brown polka dot folder chronicling 1998 to 1999, the year that she was 12. A case manager describes the middle schooler, who was labeled mildly mentally retarded, as, quote, "a very sad, angry youth. She does not make eye contact or speak without considerable encouragement to do so. She cries easily and has reacted angrily to sudden transitions." This is actually a picture of Shamika on the left and Relisha on the right. You can see there's a pretty amazing family resemblance there. Relisha was born a year and a half after Young signed herself out of the foster care system on her 18th birthday. Relisha's father, Irving Rudd, was 16 years older than Young. and had spent time in prison for the 1992 death of a toddler daughter named Tarika. The couple split not long after Young gave birth to the first of her 3 sons. Just like their mom, Relisha and her brothers moved from apartment to apartment before they wound up living in a shelter for homeless families at the old DC General Hospital. Young insists that Relisha was in the care of Melissa Young, that's her mother, who had re-entered their children's lives after their years in foster care. Melissa was the one who'd handed Relisha over to Tatum, Shamika says, who is once again estranged from her mother. But Melissa Young, 45, denies she played any role in Relisha's disappearance. Quote, "If law enforcement thought I had something to do with it, I wouldn't be still walking this street," Melissa says. "I don't know how he came about getting her that last time." So I highly recommend, if you're interested in this case, you read this article all the way from top to bottom, and it might give you a bit of more understanding in terms of some of the decisions that Shamika was making here, and just the fact that there is almost a generational history going on here of struggling with poverty, struggling with addictions, struggling with finding true help, getting a few opportunities, not taking the best advantage of those opportunities. It just reads like a tragedy that has affected what looks like 3 generations of people now, and could even go forward in these other children, the 3 sons, now that they have also been removed from their mother. And of course, they're being put into that same system that turned out these problems that we're looking at that started this whole thing. It's a real, I don't know that I like to label it exactly like that, but looking at the experience that these multiple generations have had here, specifically with these social services, it's really, really tough to not look at this and say, hey, something is really, really broken here. And did Shamika possibly think that letting Relisha go off with someone that she was seeing as an uncle, someone that was her goddaddy, so to speak, might have been an avenue for getting out of this chain of poverty? And keep in mind, you're talking about someone that seems to be struggling with some type of probably undiagnosed mental disorder of her own. It's really, really tough. When I was first looking into this case, I wanted to literally point a very strong finger and say, why isn't this woman charged? Why isn't, this is child neglect. She is paying for it. She has lost her 3 sons. The end of this article goes on to explain that despite the fact that she got a good report about her supervised visitation, they're still not allowing any unsupervised visitation, and she was hoping that her sons might be home with her for Christmas, and that was not going to happen in this case. So it's really tough, because from the perspective of kind of pointing that finger and looking to place blame, there's a part of me that says, good, she doesn't deserve to have those children. Look what she does when she has children. She gives them away to a stranger that does something terrible with them. But then you have to look at it from the perspective of the children, and what is the alternative that's going on here? What type of living situation are they being put in? Are they really being given tools to find their own way out of this life of poverty that has been going over generation after generation within this family? And that is a big question that obviously I can't answer. I don't know. It's a really, really tough situation, and all it comes back to is we've got a girl that is still out there missing. This is the Facebook page Find Relisha Rudd, and here we can see this is a posting for they used to do it monthly. I think they have just recently stopped doing it monthly, but they were holding monthly prayers for Relisha Rudd as an official event. Hearing the police say that they believe that she is no longer alive is really heartbreaking. But knowing that there was 2 other people at that hotel room, that is a big, big question for me. Who were these people? Why were they that close to a situation where literally a person was about to be murdered, and then the person that did that was going to go kill themselves? How were they related to that dynamic altogether? Is there some chance that Relisha was given away and to someone else? I don't know. I'm kind of hopeful, because I think that could be better than the alternative. But in any case, this girl is missing. I have a feeling that there might be people out there that have information that they haven't shared with authorities, possibly because they're worried that it would implicate them in some way of either assisting in this or helping to conspire in terms of covering this up, which is really, really unfortunate. This girl deserves to be paid proper respect. She's got a bunch of other family members. Even if you're not thrilled about her mother's character, there's a bunch of other family members that deserve to know where she is and what happened to her. So I will have the contact information in the description box below. And I don't know, it's just such a tough situation on so many fronts. I wanted to share it with you guys. I wanted to give you the opportunity to think about this, to take a look at it from those multiple perspectives, kind of the same ride that I did in terms of researching this. There is a very simple way to look at this story, and you can certainly pin the blame on a specific person or two. But once you dig into the details of this story, there's something else at play here that is largely cultural, largely a problem that as a nation, I think is going to take a lot more people working together to help solve. But that's kind of where I was left with this story. What about you guys? Let's talk about it in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining me here today on Searchlight. I hope you're having a wonderful week. I really appreciate that you take the time to watch these videos. It means the world to me. Take care, and I'll see you right back here on the Lord and Arts channel.